Wow. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety, and I'm so thrilled to welcome you to this conversation with everyone's obsession, Russian Doll. At this time, please join me in welcoming the remarkable women who brought this story to us, or maybe I should say stories. I want to start with, she is the director of movies like Bachelorette and Sleeping with Other People. She is a creator, executive producer, writer, and she directed the first 3 episodes of Russian Doll. Please welcome Leslye Headland. We have an Emmy and Golden Globe winner you know for her work on Saturday Night Live and Parks and Recreation. I'm pretty sure everyone here has seen her directorial debut on Netflix, Wine Country. Yes. She is a creator and executive producer on the series. Please welcome Amy Poehler. Finally, please join me in welcoming an actress you probably know for her Emmy-nominated work on Orange is the New Black, or in films like American Pie or Futile and Stupid Gesture. She is, okay, here goes, co-creator, executive producer, writer, director, and star of the series. Please welcome Natasha Lyonne.
You were trying to trip me. Yeah.
I hope I didn't miss a job in that list, Dana. You don't do craft services or anything like that?
I do. I love craft service. Red Bull.
Sugar-free Red Bull is actually even better.
Yeah, that's my thing, yeah.
Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm a little irritated with you because the series dropped when I was in England, and I was only there for like 2 days, and I needed to be out doing cultured stuff, and I just couldn't stop watching. So here I was like in a foreign country, and I was like, one more episode. It's so fantastic. So congratulations, truly.
Thank you. Thank you and sorry.
And because this is an audience of SAG actors, I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card?
Oh. Yeah. How did you get your SAG card?
No, I'm going to try to remember when you talk about yours.
Well, this will be good because my childhood every day was vivid. It was actually this morning, I got an email and they were like, you said it was 1984. Was it 1985? I was like, oh, I guess this has become a hot topic. I think it's 1984. And then, which means I was 4. Which means that, if you're wondering about my memory, it is an early onset aphasia, but I also have that. It's that I think I was 4 years old, but then my senses, I didn't really start like hitting it until 86. Like it took 2 years, and but
you got it when you were 4?
I think maybe I just turned 5.
Yeah.
Maybe April. So. But I've seen it recently, and it said either 1984 or 1985. I don't want to lie to you fine people, but it's one or the other. And so that's a long time. That's like 10 years now. Yeah. It wasn't for Pee-wee's Playhouse. I think Pee-wee's Playhouse was like my first solid gig. You know what I mean? But when I see it, it's like my big grown-up claim to fame is Pee-wee's Playhouse. And but I think I was maybe not even billed, I now see.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I think I'd done like 60 commercials or something. Most of them didn't air. Because I remember residuals were like really what we were after in the household because it was healthy. And not many of them made it to air. Anyway, it's a good story. It's so many happy times buried within the fabric of the tale organically. Amy?
I think it might have been working on the Conan O'Brien show is when I got my... that's SAG, right?
It is now. Yeah.
I wonder if it was then. Yeah, it was 96. So I would pay my rent by doing bits on Conan, like they used to have staring contests and different characters would come out, and I was under a giant foam rubber Conan. It was foam rubber Conan and foam rubber Andy, and me and John Benjamin used to play them because we could fit into the suit. So stuff like that.
Were you Conan or Andy?
That's a great question. I think I was Andy, but I'm not sure.
Wow. See, I would have pictured you as a Conan.
Yeah, thanks.
And Leslye, just, I don't know, so a lot of times directors, actor make cameos in their own work.
Oh, yeah, no. I did like a couple, like in my first 2 films, like a couple like Hitchcockian, like I'm just going to sit here and failed miserably at them, like to the point really miserably failed. Like there was one, in Bachelorette, the first shot of the movie, I am the waitress that comes and takes their order.
You are,
and it was this long dolly shot that kind of swung around, and so I was watching the dolly shot, and I'm supposed to enter into the scene, and I just watched the shot. And so no one came in, and I was like, "Weird, what happened?" And just everyone was so angry at me. Like they were just like, "Why would you put your?" So I learned my lesson. Like I'm just gonna stay over here.
No more cameos.
I'm actually gonna leave. So.
The idea for this show is so intriguing, and I hate to ask people like, where do you get your ideas? But I am curious where this even started. And actually, we had an audience question from Rosie. Right in the front. Wanted to know what was your inspiration, and was there any kind of personal revelation that kicked it off?
Well, we talk a lot about Amy and I have been working on this other show that failed, and so that's the good news about failures. And then the question had to become sort of what would we really want to tell, and we had sort of had this idea about going to the same party every night and still being left as a hollow man on the inside, no matter how many sort of choose your own ventures you would have. But that was kind of on a big scale, sort of the idea that we were toying with. And then as the 3 of us started getting together more, it really became about almost this idea of obsessive compulsive sort of looping thinking in many ways, like something that we sort of haven't talked about that much recently, that I realized was really at the core of that, the idea that you sort of experience a life as a series of sort of endlessly looping thoughts, and that you try to desperately to break the cycle, but every day you have to learn how to break that cycle all over again, which is really a Deadwood line that Calamity Jane says, every day waking up, I've got to learn how to live all over again. It's a Nicole Beatty is the writer of that line. And, but in that way, I think that was sort of part of the kind of, no exit sort of tale we were trying to tell.
Yeah, and the idea that, wherever you go, there you are. So, and we were all talking about, there's a lot of, I think Natasha's such a giant as an actor, and there's an opportunity there just in its concept to allow an actor to try a bunch of different things. And that's like really interesting and exciting. But as a testament to their writing, as we all know from watching a lot of high concept stuff, you can really get lost if you don't care about the people you're watching. You really have to believe in them and care about them, worry what happens to them. So concept or high or low is not really often what keeps you going or keeps you there. So it was a combination of digging into the real pathos and talent of Natasha as a performer, and then also just how would this whole world be an exciting place to like live in for a while.
And you mentioned you two were already working together on a show. I mean, did you all already know each other? Were you looking for something to work on together?
Yeah, Leslye, we first met for your movie.
We met, Natasha was a person that everyone was like, well, Natasha. And I was like, I actually have not met her. And so we met on my film, Sleeping with Other People. I think it was in end of 2013, maybe was our first meeting. And yeah, I was just in love.
But I do think that what was funny was originally, in early days, Amy was really hooked on Bergman, Scenes from a Marriage. That's her scene. And it was this idea of kind of what if they were individual almost plays. And Leslye is one of our great playwrights. And I was like, holy shit, I know the best playwright. And because we had just finished this movie, but I think it really speaks to this idea that thematically, we really had like a shared, like a triangular, brain trust of emotionally the thrust of like, we're saying what we wanted to say and then went about shellacking it in sort of the most palatable package.
I love that this show is on Netflix because I think it's the perfect binge show. I could not have waited a week. I needed to know right then and there. And we had a question from the audience from Aaron. Wanted to know, could you talk about the freedom Netflix gives you in creating the show? I mean, did you even have to pitch them or?
Oh yeah, we pitched of the full season, I mean, these guys have. Natasha has a really long history with Netflix. This is the first show I've done with them. Have you did?
No. This is my first experience with them too.
And it was such a pleasure because I just think that they had trust in the creators. And like you said, the machine behind them right now really knows how to market well. And they really got the tone of the show very fast. So that was really exciting as they understood the language that we were speaking. And then they knew how to translate that and tell that to you so that you'd be interested in watching it. And that isn't easy stuff.
So you told them the whole season? You had it already laid out?
Pretty much. I mean, we kind of faked it, right? But
Yeah, there was a lot of cheating in there, like, and then this happens, you know, like, they fight, you know, or something, you know, like just kind of like something conflict. I actually was just writing an outline for something else, and literally just put like pitch on this later, you know, like, and then moved on. So, but it was kind of surprisingly well thought out in the sense that. That we knew there would be this beginning, middle, and end, almost like a film or a play, like that the episodes would be, you know, kind of first act, second act, third act, and that it would feel essentially not complete in the end of the story, but that at the end you wouldn't necessarily feel like you hadn't been told something. So I don't know, am I remembering it correctly? It's so long ago now too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was thinking about the other day. That's funny. Remember in the first episode, it used to end with Nadia going to the deli and and then Farhan gives her a note, and the note has like a heart-shaped eye on it, just like in her own writing. And I was like, wow, that is wild to see sort of like how much it shifts in sort of process of something that we felt like was like such a touchstone that we had really, like, I remember pitching that the handwriting heavily in a way that, as you've seen, the handwriting does not play into the show almost at all. You know, and separately, I think that there's a real gift in a way to, you know, I think so much of sort of what we wanted to talk about is this sort of, occupying space in the world and what that sort of female and human experiences of that idea of like not taking up too much space, or, you know, feeling ashamed that you're never enough, and are you too much? I feel like that was a big part. I'm not going anywhere with this. I'm gonna give it.
But we're enjoying it, so it's okay.
Yeah. But I feel like maybe what I'm trying to say is that what was interesting for us was that there was this very special moment that, yes, with Netflix, I had this incredible relationship because of Orange is the New Black, and there was a trust there, but there was also I'm sometimes sort of grateful for being a bit, you know, ancillary in a way that I think we felt that we were allowed to kind of really do our show with our voice because there wasn't a pressure on it of it's got to be the biggest hit of all time. I think Netflix really created a space for us where we were allowed artistically to kind of very honestly communicate what we wanted to say, and in a way, how great to not be the biggest box office star of all time. Like that's almost like a false idea that that's the best place to be in the arts, because sometimes you can kind of hide in a little bit in the space and actually get some real stuff in that way. And I think we also had that gift artistically in working together as a team and working with Netflix.
Well, I was thinking, and I should give Network TV some credit because they've actually been doing some great work in recent years, but it isn't until the end of episode 3 that we get the twist involving Alan. And everyone would tell me, they'd be like, just wait till episode 3. And I was like, don't tell me that. And I was thinking about that, and I was wondering if like that's something you can almost only do on Netflix. You know, everybody wants everything up front in a pilot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think if anything, I think the only notes, and I wouldn't even call them notes, but I think that the only feedback we ever really got on a regular basis from Netflix was like, we would like to feel like watching the next episode is necessary, you know, like, and so what was really fun about that was that we were burning through story really quickly, unlike I think the old model, which might be like, we'll save it for season 2, you know. it's like no, now, like let's do it now. And so the idea that the show would kind of reinvent itself every 3 episodes is kind of, you know, something that definitely I think we went into kind of knowing because it was going to be on Netflix, because it was going to be bingeable, all of those things. But I think also like our amazing writers room were really a lot of the people that were able to help us create a satisfying binge without it feeling too like fake cliffhangery, like that at the end of each episode that it is necessary for you to watch the next one. And I really have to give that, up to, Amy and Natasha and our other writers that kind of kept us honest, I guess, about that, as opposed to it being gimmicky, which I think sometimes if you have to wait a week, sometimes that's the case.
We actually had a question from Jill. Hey.
Hey, Jill.
Enthusiasm.
It's great to see you.
She would like to know, what was the writing room like for this season, and how much of the story was pre-written as opposed to being discovered in the room together? And thank you all so much. With a heart.
Aww. There it is. The mystery continues.
There's an eye in the heart.
Yes, Jill.
Jill is from the future.
I mean, yeah, I think it was. Well, the first thing that came to mind when you asked that question is that I haven't been in many writers' room. I don't really know what I'm doing, but
Not true,
one
ladies
of the
and gentlemen.
Well, I would say I learned a lot, but one of the things that I thought was endlessly satisfying was having Natasha in the room, who was also the gatekeeper of the project in a lot of ways, if that makes sense, because not only was it her baby, but it was also she's number one on the call sheet and the person who has to do all of these things. So there was this amazing experience that I've never had before, or I certainly haven't had since, which is that you're pitching these stories, and she's pitching them, and Allison Silverman is pitching them, Amy's pitching them, Sharako Dunlap, Jocelyn Bio, and the person who actually has to do it is right there, kind of giving us feedback from both the brain trust of the project as well as the actor, as the person who needs to execute it. And so I just found that to be such a gift and such a blessing in a way that I don't know if I ever have had that experience before. Like sometimes, especially in a play, you're definitely writing and the actors are there and you're doing rewrites all the time during, previews, and you've had that experience as well. But in television and film, I've never had that experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was also, I think, a lot of fun. I think we so badly wanted to kind of, do something that we felt hadn't been done before, I think. And so there were naturally these leaps, and that I think we've all lived, the three of us, like pretty extreme lives on a just personal level of there's a lot of emotional sort of history within the three of us. And on an individual basis, but we can sort of speak to it pretty fluently. It's almost like we're grown up enough and it's far enough in the rear view mirror that we can sort of speak to it quickly. So there would be events like, let's say, the watermelons. And I don't know if you've seen the show, but episode 7, the watermelon, that's a real thing that would happen. That my mother would do. So it was, like an idea for that would kind of spark around, well, could it be sort of like this and so intense, and then it would be scary, and then we would sort of say, no, let's triple down, let's go all the way in, let's also that we felt sort of cockier, therefore I think taking jumps even on a character basis, saying no, I can follow the logic of Nadia's experience of this to this, because when it really happened, the truth about trauma in so many ways is that you have to just keep pressing on. Like time doesn't stop to allow you to process trauma. You just kind of keep barreling through. So in a weird way, I think, and the gift as an actor, I mean, Jesus, in my life, it was almost like the most I could think of was Mike Lee, that when I would think about David Thewlis and Naked or something, this idea of building something out over the course of 6 months, so that moment to moment I knew everything. Or when I thought about, everybody always talks about Jenna Rollins sort of jumping on the sofa and Woman Under the Influence, they shot that over 5 days in the house, so that the writer's room gave this extraordinary experience. as an actor, where moment to moment, even as things would get omitted because, we'd be in a crisis of a location or page count or another actor or something, I would know the sort of backstory of how we had gotten from A to B. And on a human level, I would know what it meant that she was, remembering watermelons, but I've got to keep going. So it was interesting that we were able to take these bigger sort of zigzags in a way that otherwise I think I perhaps would have been lost of. And perhaps for us as the writers, as the constructors, we would have felt were sort of too extreme, maybe. They felt very grounded somehow to us.
By the way, I just learned today, I think, that not only was your entire writing staff female, but all your directors were female. It's awesome. I don't know if that's something you set out to do intentionally or just often when you hire the best person for the job, that's how it works out.
I think it was kind of both. I think we were interested in having that kind of room, and then we also knew so many talented women who were great directors and writers, and so it was kind of a combination of both, I think, happening at the same time, and we were really, really, feeling that vibe. It was really helpful on set to have that. So I don't know if we necessarily all set out when the show started, to make that a mandate. But as it started to form, we got really excited about the people that we had chosen that wanted to work with us. And I think it was about halfway through, we were like, this is going to be all women. This is awesome. And yeah, it just was, I think it's something we're very proud of, for sure. But it was easy to do.
And Natasha, I think you directed the season finale?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have so many questions. In addition to to doing craft services and writing, no, I mean it is such a cliche, but you are doing so much on the show. What is it like to direct yourself? And it's a very wonderfully complicated episode with the split screens, and I mean, I don't know if you could have picked a more difficult or important episode other than the pilot.
Yeah.
Pilot, first episode.
Well, first of all, I mean, the good news is I didn't have to do it alone. Really what's so the gift of television in a way is it really is. It's such a collaborative medium. I think probably because I was an actor, sometimes I feel like, in the same way that we don't want to see, Russell Crowe's band or something. You know what I mean? I think I have a shame or something around it. I'm like, but it's pretty personal. I'd really like to do it for this. It feels really right to this specific project. And I will say, I really have a deep interest in this, which is writing and directing and so forth. And so I think, though, as a result, that I was like, well, if Russell Crowe's going to play, it better be a really good song. It better be heavily prepared. So I think that I was stressed out enough. Of course, we also didn't know at the time that the finale was going to end up being this sort of split screen bonanza that it was. So, but it was heavily, I spent, hours, weeks, weeks, and making sure that it was meticulously storyboarded and referenced in every sort of direction, that it was kind of really this sort of thing that I would be able to walk into that was sort of planned so tightly that it was going to leave, there wasn't going to be a lot of room for having to ask. And, I think that the good thing in this sort of, in our deciding that the finale would make sense, I think there was this idea of, okay, by that point, we'll have a really strong sense of sort of who Nadia is, what the language, what the tone, what this show is, so that there would be a fluency and a seamlessness to actually playing and being fully inhabited. I figured by that point I'd be accidentally method. I would just be living, Nadia, and similarly, the other people would really know what they were doing. So I think it was ideal in a way, but made additionally stressful by all the split screens and multiverses. The A246 loop.
All the loops. There were many meetings about the loops, but I just wanted to say too very quickly about Natasha directing that. I just have never seen anything like it. I mean, she's speaking to her preparation, but she was also extremely flexible, which is something that I think is hard for something that is that complicated that episode, that she would still, in the middle of a scene, or when you're running out of light or any of those kinds of things, watching her kind of take that in stride and then walk in front of the camera to do the performance that you just watched in that episode is like really kind of, I just don't know. I just had never seen anything like it, and I don't know if I ever will again. And also the way that she edited the episode, because a lot of times when you get the director's cut, you're kind of like, oh no, like it's like, and it's not the director's fault. You're just like, oh fuck, this is gonna be terrible. And her director's cut for 108 was one of the best director's cuts I've ever seen. I don't think I even really had that many notes. I think a lot of it was kind of trying to figure out stuff that was affected by other episodes and things like that. But ultimately, it was really like. It was like watching someone so effortlessly slip into that role. So it's like, I just wanted to add to that because you did do so much work and you were so well prepared. But there was also there was an ease to the way that you were while shooting that episode that I thought was really amazing. Yeah.
I know that last shot where Tasha's walking down the street, that determined face, which is really a pain. It's a very inscrutable expression. Really is. It gets me every time. It's such an interest. You really don't know how to feel, and you know exactly how to feel at the same time. It's so awesome. I love that shot.
Stolen from
homage.
from Julieta Messina,
Yeah.
Knights of Cabiria. I kept studying that, and I was like, what the fuck is she doing?
Well, she
how
buzzes
is
the
she-
lens, right?
Yeah, does she?
Yeah, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She, because there's a moment where it feels like you're looking at us. You're not,
Yeah.
though, but it feels like you are.
I didn't think that's what so I was
yeah.
like, well, how does she do that thing that makes you feel sort of all the things, but it's sort of like all the unanswered future questions and carrying kind of like all the past of the experience. And I just think Julieta Messina is, I'm so excited also that Lena Wertmuller is going to get some Academy Awards attention, but I just feel like, those are like sort of two women that inhabited Fellini's world so often, and they're giants but she in particular really could, she really speaks some acting language.
I want to talk about the amazing cast you assembled for this show. And actually, all three of you are sort of experts at putting together ensembles or just having these like really memorable ensembles. I don't even know where to start. I mean, you get to work with Elizabeth Ashley and Chloe Sevigny. Was it, what is it like, especially for actor producers, to be on the other side of the casting table?
Well, I'll give credit to these two for really digging super deep in the New York acting world to find incredible people that we know and that we don't know. I think that's what Russian Doll has are these introductions to faces and then these celebrations of fine character actors who are just tremendous. So, it's very interesting is that, casting sometimes is like you get what you're supposed to get, right? So there's a whole process of who you think might be the person you should chase, or who's the person that's can only do it in the right. And I think there were some roles that everybody had thoughts very strongly for from minute one. Elizabeth was probably one of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's the big curiosity I experienced, even the other show that we did together. There's an inevitability to acting that I think, like, I would always experience it as an actor of, okay, so she's got eyeliner and she's tough and she smokes. This is mine. But then I would get there and I'd be like, oh, but this is CSI. So they actually mean like a South Beach supermodel with eyeliner. You know what I mean? And that's sort of that murky thing of that what you discover once you're on the other side of it is that there's kind of a weird sort of destiny happening with casting of that in some ways, there's nothing I can do to make you think that I'm the person no matter how much I'm sure of it. And there's a heartbreak in that too. Yeah. And with this, it really felt like there was destiny. Like Alan, Charlie Barnett was somehow destined to be Alan. Like the room, as we were writing it, it was slowly moving towards me. He was somebody that I knew. He was Samira Wiley, who plays Poussey on Orange. She's her old best friend from Juilliard, and was kind of like the master of ceremonies at her bachelorette party in Miami. And like but that was really as much as I knew him. And there was this one night where like there was a kind of a hazy conversation everyone was having, and it just kept floating in the room as like, is that Alan? Elizabeth Ashley, Ruth is based on my real godmother, Ruth, to a certain extent. And I remember it was Lou Reed's memorial, and this woman said, like, "Do you have a light? I know it's pouring rain, but I need a smoke before because of Lou." And I was like, "Who?" Like, and of course I knew.
Whose voice is deeper than mine?
Yes. But one. And of course I'd seen her, I'd seen her not too long prior in other desert cities and stuff, and I knew her, but it wasn't until really kind of coming face to face with her, and I was like, yo. And then of course, Rebecca Henderson is one of our, great New York theater actresses, but also
My wife.
yeah.
You're kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like my main contribution to the cast.
That's not true, Jeremy
You're
Bobb.
like, take my wife.
Jeremy Bobb. Take my wife.
Take my wife, please.
She needs a job.
Jeremy Bobb.
Jeremy Bobb.
Bob, the best. But yeah, no, and I have to say, I really want to also call out Natasha in casting such a diverse cast too, which was something that it really is. It's something that you really taught me a lot about, and it's really stuck with me, moving forward and all those kinds of things. I think. Brene Brown, our favorite.
Brene.
Defines privilege as choosing your own comfort over, the right thing. And I think that I was just definitely a person that was just I never thought of myself as a closed-minded person or a person that was favoring, the easy over whatever. But I really woke up to the fact in this particular, even just down to the background actors and how specific Natasha was about casting a diverse cast, a cast that really looked like New York, that really felt like I just learned so much and kind of got woke up a little bit. I guess that's what they're saying now, woke with the kids. I just put that together. That's what that
Hashtag
means.
woke.
Hashtag woke. I just realized what that means. But yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about that at all. But I just was so impressed by how.
Yeah, I do think it's really, problematic when we see these things and it's just, a bunch of white people and we're like, yeah, that's life, right? It's sick.
In New York, no less.
There's a deranged quality to it. And I think it's one of those things that kind of, once you sort of notice it, you can't put the genie back in the bottle of like, why are we presenting this world? It's it's a heavy kind of realization. I think, of course, my time on Orange is the New Black is the thing that probably alerted me to that experience of just, and then I think that we have all these weird categories of like, okay, so this is the gay character, therefore they're not also the lawyer because it doesn't say a gay lawyer. So we have these kind of these concepts of a modifier in our mind where it's like, well, it's a lawyer, right? So we don't think gay people do law. Like I know my lawyer is gay, so we do this kind of weird game that we play around and it's like, hey, how about we just widen what our concept is of this, and then he would sort of are delighted to discover that there's. Also selfishly, like there's, we've seen so much content at this point in life. Like I'm like all good on bands with 4 floppy-haired dudes named the Blanks. You know what I mean? So I think we're good for a while. Like the Beatles, nailed it, and so did the Strokes. Like I'm all good for a while. Let's hear some other music from some different lanky white dudes with shaggy hair. Right? We're good. And so even selfishly, you know what I mean? It's kind of about like, how about this a new and then it's I think once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like I would find myself walking into a bar or something, and it would just be background, and we'd just be like, there's almost this warped sense that's inherently. I think it's subconsciously supremacist of kind of, well, we've got like 70-30, and ultimately there's sort of, I think there's a warped sense around tokenism that we're not quite all the way there yet, where we're like, what? We did it. And it's like, did what? What the fuck is it? Like, let's just make it the real thing. Let's go all the way in. yeah, I have strong feelings on the subject.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
When you were talking about casting, because I do think, since we are in a room with actors, I do think that, yes, Tosh, I think that you can't get someone to believe it's you, right? It is there's a lot of destiny, but what you can do in auditions is you can get somebody to want to work with you. So that's what I find over and over again is even if you're not right for the part, it's so helpful to meet actors that way and be like, they're great, and you really do remember them. And that happens all the time at Paper Kite, the stuff that we do. But like Greta is a great example. We work with Greta in our show on NBC, and then we worked with her again. But you start to get to know actors in that way. So even an audition that doesn't feel like it's the right fit is still an opportunity, I think, just for the person to get to know you. And any good producer or director remembers the performance in that person, whether or not it's the right fit. They're just like, so it's, so I think it can be that they want to work with you, but maybe not in this way at this time.
And you really are auditioning not just for one role. Like, I hear that all the time.
I also want to say really quickly, because I am obsessed with Jeremy Bobb, but the reason I liked him so much is because I saw him in the Knick, and I thought, it was just, I was so taken with his performance, and this speaks to what Amy just said, is that whatever you end up doing, like, do it to the best of your ability, do it with love, and do it with positivity, because the thing that really drew me to him was that he lost in every scene. Every scene he was in, he was just like dunked on. And I thought, when we were thinking about Mike and how much we were going to be making fun of him, and, and I just thought, you know who will kill this is this guy from the Knick, which is nothing like Russian Doll. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, and to really embrace where you are in your career and your life, and the because a lot of people like myself will just kind of look at it and not think like costume period drama, you must be this person, but kind of notice the work that you're doing and kind of think, oh, you know what, they'd also be good at, X.
And we just got lucky. I mean, so what you're saying, like the stereotyping of, I think we wanted to, like with Dascha Polanco, I think we very much wanted to see her do like the inverse of what she was doing on Orange. Felt really exciting.
Yeah.
But then there were other people that are just, Brendan Sexton III is somebody that like we've known for a while, I think all of us, and that he just, my God, he was so good. Like every day he was just so good. Or then David Cale, who's like a New York theater actor who is just so good. Chloe is my Rebecca Henderson, and she's my wife. And I think that we were so lucky to get somebody so talented. But I think there was also a real sense of that there was a fear in exposing something very vulnerable that was sort of like my mommy issues, for lack of a better word. There was a safety in kind of putting it inside of her container that for me made it feel like the right amount of distance and intimacy based on our kind of personal history of going through 20 years of life together. And so that was very specific to that role. And then what Leslye directed in episode 7 with the Chloe episode, I mean, it just was like heart-wrenching. I mean, I remember us being in the edit for that and like just weeping and watching it because it was so heavy to see it all sort of put together.
And as actors, you must be so grateful and happy when someone gives you the opportunity to do something different that you haven't done before. So to get to give that to actors has to be a great feeling.
Yeah, casting is so important, and auditions are stressful because you want them, you really want people to do well, and you feel stressed when they're stressed. I mean, so much of it is managing your nerves when you're in the room. And, when people get nervous or stressed, we do all kinds of things, right? I mean, I know when I was auditioning, like I would act like I didn't care. Because I was like, I'll reject you before you reject me. So I would kind of, just not helpful when you're trying out for something. So in the middle of an audition, if I felt like it wasn't going well, I would get this attitude, like as if they had called me there, It's not helpful, and it didn't work. No, it didn't work. I would stop being vulnerable, which was. And I see it. We all do that. We come in, with, especially with comedy. Sometimes people really want to kind of come in kind of strong, and almost tease really hard, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
like, so it's a mixture of things, and I find auditions to be pretty stressful. I think it's,
So
I don't know. I
strange.
think it's because I was an actor, and I just remember those times. Other people are just like, bring them all in, let's see them all, come back again and again and again. I'm gonna eat my lunch, and like I'm gonna really look at you, and it's like it's a lot. It's intense.
It's hard to be vulnerable. I
It
mean, Brene
is.
Brown. Again,
Indeed.
talks so much about it.
It's so scary. I mean, like the actor's life is. I don't know if you guys read that Franklin Jella. Like there was an article in the Times that he wrote of like the seesaw ride, the actor's life. You know? I mean, because it's heavy, and I think like the underlying fear is sort of like, what if they never see me in this life? Like, what if I never get my chance to like show this obscure them what I'm made of, you know? And it's so, you know, it's so heavy that it's kind of one of these, the few in the arts. Like I remember Clea Duvall and I in the 90s, we had worked together, and we were actress buddies, and at the time she had a girlfriend who was a musician, a girl named Radio, and Radio would go play music, and Clea and I would be like, well, how come we can't go jam? And we would we started reading aloud from this Anne Heche book had just come out called Call Me Crazy.
Yeah.
And we were like, let's just start reading out loud from this, and we can jam too, meaning like, how come I can't play my instrument in private? I need you to watch me in order to see what I can do. And that's what's so painful about, you know, the actor's kind of experience moving through. And so it's a heavy ride.
And finally, just for my own curiosity, I have to admit, I didn't get the double entendre of Russian Doll until like 2 weeks after I watched it. I was like, oh, they stack. Look at that. Who came up with that title?
Amy.
Nice.
We had this title, and then for a while, all the Russia stuff was happening. And we were like, this is good, right? Or bad, right? Or good, right? Or bad.
Is it over? By the way, I don't think it's over.
No, maybe it's not over.
Well, I love that. That's another thing about Netflix is that they don't have to tell you everything. And so I had no idea what the show was about when I started. I thought maybe you were like the daughter of some mob boss.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was actually a separate movie that Leslye and I were writing.
The Last Dawn.
The Last Dawn. My name was going to be Dawn. Thank you. You're welcome that you actually got Russian Doll.
That's awesome.
But Amy is like the world's greatest titler. She titles like all the shows.
Thanks. I feel like I know it is cursed now that I'm saying it, but I do. But for a while also we were playing around with the Russian name of that. Is it
Matryoshka, which is very
dolls.
catchy.
Matryoshka.
Yeah. It was only called Matryoshka.
Matryoshka, and I think we picked the right one.
Yeah, no, it's great. Even before I figured out that it had two meanings, at least. Is there a third no one's told me about? It's entirely possible.
We can't tell you.
Well, again, I want to congratulate you on just a fantastic season. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
They told me I'll ask about season 2, but I was done.